early.
I hear noise. Is that Sandy? Yeah.
Bad thing, I forgot to set my alarm before I fell asleep. And I was like, oh, I didn't set my alarm early. And I set it in the middle of the night.
I'll like it. I would have had
There you
to,
go.
Before
I would have
Add
had
some
to
light
miss
to
it
this.
at 9 today, so
Huh?
I'm glad we have it at 8. I gotta be on the road
There you
around
go.
9.
Wake yourself
Put some
up.
light on the subject here. You're going blind. Okay, it is 8 o'clock, and we will come to order. This is the Washington Area Highway Transportation Committee. It is Monday, November 25th, 2019. Roll call. Gina?
Craig Miller.
Here.
Ed Fisher.
Here.
Stephen O'Connor.
Here.
Ray Frankenberg.
Here.
Bobby Inman. Bill Stratman.
Here.
Mayor Lucy. Joe Holtmeyer.
Here.
Annie Cassett.
Here.
Albie Eccleston.
Here.
Bill Miller. Tim Brinker.
Here.
Steve Sullentrop. John Elgis.
Here.
Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good morning, good morning. We'll see how this 8 o'clock meeting works from 9. It's tougher in the winter, though. It's easy in the summer. First item is always the approval of the minutes from the previous month, meeting, month, whatever. Any comments, corrections, additions, subtractions? A little different format how we got the minutes. I think it's good. It's good how they've put it together.
I did like those
Good morning.
a little bit more. Thanks, Gina.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank Gina for all the time that she spends with this committee, getting the minutes together, keeping us honest and whatever. I've never seen really a mistake you've made, so I guess that's good. That's great, that's great.
Perfect in every way.
There you go. So thank you, Gina, for this past year's secretarial duties or whatever. So assuming there are no corrections on the minutes, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the meeting and minutes as presented. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Moving right in here. Craig, it looks like you're up for number 1. Amtrak.
I don't know that I have any big report. I did include in the meeting notes for today stuff that I received from downtown, which are not ridership reports, actually. They're on-time reports for October and through when I got the report in November, and as well as visitor center details of people coming through there. Good news that I'm hearing from Tourism Committee is that they had a lot of trouble with late trains more recently, and October was surprisingly on time. So they were doing pretty well so far into November as well, which is good. I do not have ridership reports. I'm still working on getting those. So those visitor center reports don't necessarily correlate with people getting on and off the train, but I'll work to have those in the next report.
Okay.
I like those as well.
I do
Yeah.
too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was kind of,
I guess I thought that's what I was getting, and then I was realizing as I was sending them off, I was like, oh, I don't know that that's exactly what I was after, so I will get those as well.
well, I appreciate
Yeah.
what you have and look forward to anything else.
Well, it's interesting by month, if we can start seeing the history of what's happening with our visitors. That's because we have different events going on, and you can kind of identify some of it
Yep.
by the events.
They had a lot of traffic. October, which is normal, I think, especially in Herman, from that meeting that I went to last time, that is their largest single ridership month. Obviously, people are going on the train to and fro Oktoberfest over there. In fact, the person from Herman kept talking about, we still have things to do in Herman that's not October, right? So,
Oh, yeah, there is.
that being said, it's
There
a
is.
very large month for travel. So I would imagine a lot of those are coming through here as well. So
Very good.
it's good for town.
I think Washington's becoming very well known as a destination. A few weeks ago, there were about, I'm going to say maybe about 40 people in Washington celebrating a family reunion, and they had no connection to Washington, like it wasn't a relative lived here or that, but they did want to come they wanted to visit Missouri wine country. So that was part of it. They started arriving on Wednesday evening and didn't leave until Sunday. I mean, they were from all over the country. And it was just like wow. And they stayed at the Old Dutch and had their big dinner at the Old Dutch. They did everything around here. They participated in Thirsty Thursday and and they knew more about the community when they arrived, so they must have been looking at our website. It was really kind of fun. But there was no personal connection to Washington. They just chose it. So.
Yeah, those visitor center reports you see on the weekends, the spikes, there's people are using the visitor center and, using that. And they're downtown, which is
Yeah.
nice. It's not just they're up in Phoenix Center or something like that. There are people that are visiting to enjoy our downtown area.
Pretty exciting.
Anything else?
I just have one thing to add real quick. We did get a couple reports from the police department about people still trespassing, crossing the tracks at various locations to get to the north side to the trail. So we've pushed those on the police department just to kind of keep an eye on things a little more, but just forward those concerns over to me. That is a big concern for staff of people trying to cross the tracks at locations that they're not supposed to be.
Really?
So.
Really? Isn't it fenced? Isn't it fenced, pretty much?
There is some areas that are fenced. This specific instance, they actually went through the Union Pacific rail yard on the west end during operation hours. They would cross over. That is not a public crossing. That is actually private. That is Union Pacific's. So we let them know, Union Pacific know, to kind of work with us on getting their gates closed, things of that nature. But if you have any of those concerns, pass them on.
Very good, thank you, John. Anything else on Amtrak? Hearing none, Highway 47, Missouri River Bridge. Steve, that's your,
And the Highway 47 project is done. There's a couple of minor things they got to clean up, but overall, it's done. And the bridge project, the water's still high. So they were hoping the water would drop so they could get the causeways removed and do the paving on the trail on the Warren County side. But said unless the water drops, they're not going to be able to get it done this year.
well,
So they said there is a chance that the Dakotas could hold up some water, so the river could drop. So if that happens and the weather stays okay and they can get mixed, they could get the project done this year, but
well,
they're not counting on it. So it could be completed in the spring.
so the excess rock and stuff that you'll be taking out of that, there is a place for that. I think the city is working with you. Is that
Yeah,
take
that's what
that,
I've been told.
Move some of that to the airport?
Yes,
or
yeah.
someplace?
We have 2 locations identified for some short hauls to get it done as fast as they can get it done. So, and then
They want
that,
to get it done, they just
right.
can't catch a window.
And I am meeting, Wayne Dunker, Parks Director, and myself are meeting with Tim Hellebush with MoDOT this morning to just kind of keep up on, when the river does drop, to move quickly, because they're telling me that it's going to take about a week to maybe 10 days to get the causeway rock out of the south side and the north side. And I think they brought in some dive teams to remove some sheet pile last week that they didn't want to wait around any longer. So they're trying to do what they can, but really from our end, it really affects the trail construction probably the most, and that's probably what I get the most calls about, is when is this trail going to be open? People are getting are frustrated about that, and we can't move until that rock is removed out of the south
They
side.
tear it all back, they tear it all up again, wouldn't they?
Exactly. So the idea is, and that's why we're meeting with Tim this morning, is once we get that schedule nailed down and that we can get the trail regraded and some culverts put in this winter and those type of things, we'll be ready to pave right out of the gates this spring. That's the hope. But again, it's all hinged on the river level. So we're working really tight with MoDOT to keep this schedule as condensed as possible.
Tim will work with you.
Yeah.
He's a good guy.
Yep.
Yeah,
He's been very helpful.
yeah. Great, thank you for donating it. I guess that was the contractor that you're working, with a contractor probably to get, to move that materials, correct?
Yeah, we're working directly with the contractor, and then Tim's obviously been kind of a
Sure,
mediator in
sure,
that
but I mean,
discussion, but
that's-
yeah, it's directly with the contractor. And that's just, like I said, we're just trying to find the most efficient, quickest way to get this thing done. We're thinking outside the box as much as we can.
Very good, very good.
How about the lighting? How's that coming?
Oh, yeah.
I heard it's almost complete, but I think they're tweaking things, but I've not seen it at night, so I don't know 100%. But
I know it's a boat club.
This would be, have you heard anything about that, John? Because this would be the weekend, maybe.
Yeah, I've heard that, and again, we've been working with Tim directly, but the lighting, there was some issues, and I don't remember which bet numbers, which between, but there were some issues with a couple light banks that were up there. They were programmed, it's some issues with programming during the blast or something. So they must have had to float another barge or at least schedule that to get up there to make that repair. That's why the lights have not been turned on yet, is because that barge schedule, I can imagine that's probably pretty hard to get scheduled.
Naturally.
So they're trying to make that repair. Once that's done, they're ready to go. I know Darren and I have seen it once, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 weeks ago, and it's pretty impressive. So they're saying by the end of the month, but again, I was told that 3 weeks ago, and I don't know if that's going to happen right now. But
It
they're
was on
optimistic.
last week at the boat club meeting, there were 2 spans on. There were
Yeah.
no other spans, and they didn't, and the pier lights, I thought I saw them on when I drove in, but when I was down there on the dock, they were off too, so I don't know whether, what,
Still testing,
Yeah.
still in testing stage.
it would be
And-
nice when they all get lit up.
Yeah, and it's important that we keep talking about these lights because, the city does maintain those, once the warranty period, which I believe is a 3-year warranty, it's a 3-year warranty. Those become city lights, all of them, the walkways, the piers, the girders, everything. And if there is an outage on those, we gotta get a barge scheduled or some sort of a cherry picker scheduled to get over and fix that. So if a light bank goes out, it's not gonna be, we could fix it tomorrow night. It's gonna be one of these things we gotta schedule, plan, everything else. So just so everyone understands, that if there is a failure of the lights, that it could take some time to get those repaired. I just don't wanna paint this pretty picture that we get a call to City Hall and all of a sudden by next Saturday, it'll be open back up, or back on again, because it will not happen that quick.
changing a light bulb.
It's not. And it's interesting because they're LED, and I know nothing about LED and programming, but all those LEDs are actually little circuit boards. So they have to be programmed as well. So it is not like changing a light bulb. It's not like you can pull one out, put it back in. It actually has to be pre-programmed back in the system. So it involves a lot more IT and those type of things. So it's a pretty complicated system, so.
Well, the biking trail, it really looks neat at night.
It is.
It really is magnificent. When you're coming from the north and you're coming this way, those lights are just, it really takes the place of any other lighting that, people said, what are you going to have? The bridge is going to be dark looking. Well, it's not dark looking when you see those lights. The trail lights actually light it up, I think.
They are programmed to turn off when the park closes, which is midnight. The only time they'll be on longer than midnight would be 1 a.m. on New Year's Day or New
There you
Year's
go.
Eve.
New Year's Eve.
The walkway lights will remain on
Yeah,
at
the
all
walkway.
times. It's just the actual aesthetic lighting are programmed to
Right.
essentially go to bed, I guess, would be a way to say it, but at midnight. So when we discuss that,
So the walkway lights will be literally dusk to dawn type
yes,
lighting.
it's a different
Correct.
controller. Yep. And they are all programmed to change every minute. I forget the term, but we don't have to do anything special to keep them with daylight savings time or anything like that. It's all automatic. Unless there was a change in daylight savings time, which has
Yes.
happened recently. So
Maybe it'll be gone. Maybe we won't have it anymore.
that would cost us some money because they have to get reprogrammed that. So we got to remember that. Tim, keep that in mind if there's a push to change daylight savings. That costs us cash.
Because of bridge lights.
No, that's,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
That's all it took.
Yeah, that's what it was.
so really, Steve, anything else you can give on the bridge that basically it's basically we're waiting on the flood levels to lower
That's correct.
to under 14 or what is it,
Yeah,
20,
I think
14?
14 is the magic number.
To get the stuff out of the actual,
Right.
yeah.
What is it now?
It's
I don't
right
know, it's
about
still-
14.
It's running right at 14 and a half to 15.
Right there, it has to be
Yeah,
close.
It's been heading down, but real slow.
then they
So, I
let
mean, it's
more
gonna be
water
a few
out.
more days, we should be below 14. So whatever that means, I don't think it means they're gonna open it in a
No,
few days, though.
they got to make a point, yeah. They got to try to work it in.
Isn't there any way, you worry me when you say that the only way to fix the lighting is to schedule a barge? Isn't there any other way to do it?
Yeah, they have, MoDOT actually has I don't know what the correct term is, but it's more like a cherry picker, where it's an arm that goes underneath the girder. They have one of those to do their bridge inspections, and I believe they do bridge inspections once a year. I think once a year is what I recall. So that's where, it's not in the agreement that we can work that out, but we need to make sure that we coordinate those with MoDOT, because if there is a failure, we can then utilize their equipment and their permitting to, do the lane drops and all the traffic control and things like that. Because that piece of equipment requires traffic being shifted over onto the shoulders and everything else. So there is another way. but it all has to be permitted through MoDOT. And again, it doesn't happen, you know, in a week's time. It takes a lot of planning to get that done.
And I think
So
that's a statewide vehicle, so
it moves.
in the right part of the state.
Correct. Now, there are private companies that can do it too. So it's not that we can't contract with somebody else. It's just, again, we may look into going into a maintenance contract with a contractor. And it's kind of like maybe we pay them a retainer, and there's like an on-call situation that we say in that contract, within 30 days of you being notified, it needs to be repaired. You know, what does that cost? We don't know that yet, but that's something we're going to be budgeting for as that 3-year warranty period closes out. So it'll really depend on what the failure is. You know, if it's a failure where we can't use that piece of equipment and it does require a barge, well, then it may take a barge. So I know this failure required a barge. But what's going on right now, from what I've been told, requires a barge to get floated to where they can actually get a lift in the river. So it's,
Well, hopefully they'll have it all figured out.
yeah. Yeah, and I'm not,
Years, you know.
they're LED lighting, they're very confident that there's not going to be any issues for quite some time. But again, I just want to make sure we're all aware that if there is a failure, that we'll start working immediately on it, but that fix doesn't happen overnight.
Steve, I noticed they did some painting, some repainting of the railing over the course of the last month or so. Is that now, I thought it was my understanding that was going to be somewhat permanent, that paint never needed to have any maintenance to it. Maybe I'm mistaken, but John, maybe you know too.
It's most likely just scuffs and marks due to
Well, it looked like
construction.
big pieces were flaking off of it when I drove by it a couple of times. I mean, they were out there repainting it. Seemed like a long time, but
I couldn't tell you the reason why.
that's probably, is that another thing with warranty, or is that?
Well, MoDOT, the actual paint and that type of aesthetic, or that's more of not necessarily an aesthetic thing, that's actual a maintenance item for the bridge. So any issues that they have with that, from what I understand, is a MoDOT responsibility to take care of.
Yeah, we remember the old bridge.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Half
peeling.
No, that's,
Well, it'd be
yeah.
on the contractor while it's still a project, so
Yeah, exactly,
they're
exactly. And they're trying to take
Always.
care of it. I just thought if that was going to be a normal occurrence, the flaking off was pretty sizable. I mean, big pieces, areas like this where you could see it had all flaked off. And maybe it was improperly put on, but whatever. That will be on do you have a check sheet or a what do they call it?
Punch list?
Punch list?
yeah, for
That,
sure.
put that on the punch list just for double check that.
I'll
Who's
talk-
responsible
yeah.
for it, how long?
All right.
Because I thought there was a no maintenance, as I recall.
Yeah, I'll find out.
Yep. Okay. Anything else? Hearing none. Highway 47 Corridor Committee.
I have nothing to add.
Tim, anything new?
In the works. The application process is in the process, and it's Cochran Engineering's taking the lead on it and coordinating with MoDOT and East West Gateway, and hopes that we'll be able to get something submitted that meets everybody's criteria, that we can actually grab the funding we need and get this thing rolling. But that's where it is right now.
Well, that Lockmiller report was so key when you look at now, because now you get a chance to get some of this funding that could be coming down the pike from the new program, and for the new federal highway transportation bill expires in September of 2020. And historically, last time it was a 6-year agreement, as I recall, Eric, is that right? Yeah. But before that, you had 1-year continuing resolutions for like 5 or 6 years. It needs to be a 6-year whatever, and that's, if we could tie into some federal monies from one of our legislatures or whatever, could get us I remember Highway 47, the $1 million that bond got put into this, and all it said was to be used on Highway 47 at Washington Bridge. Didn't say what you were going to do with it. It laid there for years. It became like a point of interest that we could go back to and say, hey, what can we do with this money? Do we put it for repairs? Do we put it for a study? Do we do for whatever? But it's going to be kind of a long-term project to get the 4750 thing done. But if we could get the legislator just to assign us some money for the future at the last year of the 6-year program.
Well, you know as well as I do, those things are very, very difficult to get done
I know they are.
anymore.
I know they are.
everybody's needs growing and the pot not.
All I say is, anytime you see our legislative people, we got to ask for it. Get a way to get just a designation that this is something that needs to be done. And get it into a federal bill somehow, and so it's not forgotten, and just earmark some money somehow. I don't know how we do that. Whitcomb's would be a good one to do that, if he could, yeah. Anything else on the corridor? Hearing none. Highway Transportation Committee. Franklin County, I'm sorry, Transportation.
We've not met since the last meeting, and I have nothing to,
There's gonna be a meeting
Bring
scheduled
forth.
for December, and that's where that's at.
Eric, anything on Warren County? Any more ideas on the bridge, at the end of the bridge for the bike path, or are they gonna put signs up, or?
Yeah, we're gonna
Yeah, give us an idea what your plan is.
talk with our traffic folks, and they'll get the signs ordered, and we'll get some bicycle signs
Okay.
placed up on 47. And then we'll do some pavement markings on the shoulder as well, probably this spring.
Good.
Because we're into winter weather right now.
Right, that's
But
good.
those will be coming.
Good, that's a start. Good.
Yep.
Thank you, Eric. Special Road District, Edward.
Well, literally, a lot of water went under the bridge since we met last. But the first thing I want to say is we're surprised and disappointed, I guess, in that the paper would print such grossly inaccurate numbers without fact checking. That surprises me. But that being it, I got the feeling that we were, by many, that we were sitting on a pot of money, which we're not. The numbers were so different that we had to find out, where'd you get the numbers? And the best we could tell is the numbers you had was that all the money collected in the city of Washington was going to the special road district, which was not true. The breakdown is of the money collected for the road is 25% goes back off the top, goes back to the city. 20% goes to the county, and then the special comes in. So, you know, we had a meeting, and the facts is that they, every month, the money that's collected every month, some months it's not very much, but it's, by the middle of the next month, it's put in our account, our part. The city gets it put in their account, which is held over at Union by Debbie Aho. And so, that being said, let's see, where was I going here? Anyway, let me see.
Ed, have you met with the people, with your people from the road district since the last meeting?
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, you have?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Bernie's here. Bernie's on the road district. Kevin is working. He can't be here. Kevin Mooney. So anyway, we had a meeting, and we found out that there was a pot of money in that account for the city to the tune of over $600,000. And there had been no withdrawals in more than 3 years up until the time that we had a meeting, which was last day or two after our meeting. So I find that hard to believe that you're not withdrawing any money, but the records show there was no withdrawal. So anyway, I imagine Darren wants to say something, and I'm just stating facts. There's nothing fictitious about what I'm saying. So the people in Washington, around Washington, and the city of Washington, in my opinion, is better off with the road district. And the road district is not, responsible for double taxation, which has been accused. So, anyway, Darren, throw it out.
Sure. I mean, we had a meeting with Ed and their legal counsel. John and I attended it. And he's right. There is some clarification with regards to it, but it is a very convoluted formula for how you determine where these funds go and how they go ahead and get collected. I will say this, though. The difference that Ed did not tell you is that there is $745,000, for example, in 2018 that was collected, okay? Just to give you the big number. Since 2000, when Franklin County became a first-class county, there is legislation on the books that says that any tax that's collected off of that, off of the property tax, and this is what this is based off of, automatically comes out and 25% of that goes to the city. Now, keep in mind that that's the money, that's the pot of money that Ed was just talking about. Last year, it was approximately $166,000 that got set aside. That was just for 2018. That money gets set aside regardless of whether or not there's a special road district in place or not. That money doesn't come from them. If the special road district dissolved tomorrow, that money would still be coming into the city because of that legislature that's in place. So back shortly after 2000, I think, according to Mark Piontek, Jim Briggs and Mark Piontek met with Mark Vincent, the legal counsel at the time, and said, how do we go ahead then and set aside this money? How do you want to go ahead and get it dispersed? And that's when the treasurer's office set up that separate account to go ahead and put that money in there. That's how it was told or conveyed to me. So he is right that there is that amount. There's about $600-some thousand that's sitting over there. We have that budgeted for future projects down the road. What our goal was to go ahead and work with the special road district, and really, we're still trying to go ahead and set up a meeting to go ahead and meet. I just discussed this with Ed before we got started this morning to see if there's a couple dates that we could go ahead and sit down and discuss. What it does not take is that out of those funds, 90% of the money that still comes in for the revenue for the special road district still comes from property owners within the city limits of Washington. So that's 90% of their budget. Our argument is that if, as we move forward and we develop, hopefully, a mutual agreement, that there's some revenue sharing that takes place as a result of that. If they're collecting 90% of the revenue from property owners within the city limits, we would think that some of that money should possibly come back to the city for transportation projects that we have. So that's kind of the goal that we'd like to go ahead and do and as we move forward with the special road district, but those are things that we'd like to go ahead and discuss with the meeting. So I threw some dates out to Ed. Hopefully we can meet in the near future. But just to kind of walk you through that formula of that, let's just say $750,000, they have to determine how much of that comes from the city. And then once they determine how much of that comes from the city, that's where they get the 25% based on the legislature that was passed years ago. That money then gets set aside. So then you get down to approximately $500,000. The county then gets 20% of that total. So that comes off. Then you also, basically, I think with what they were left with, was about $462,000, I think, something like that.
Something close.
And so of that $462,000, I think that's something that the city would like to see some of that revenue, since 90% of that is coming from property owners within the city limits, that some of that comes back to the city for transportation projects. It's as simple as it gets. Or we have some other type of, and we have some type of agreement as we go ahead and share resources with regards to labor. Now, I know over the years we've bought equipment together. We've discussed that before. That's fine. Concern that we have, we've long held a handshake agreement, I think, with the road district and the city, but we have concerns with regards to insurance, with regards to our employees, helping them out, because I think you have, one employee still, Ed? I mean, is that what you guys have, one or half-time or part-time?
Part-time.
Part-time, okay. So obviously, unless they decide to contract all their work out, if there's any maintenance that needs to be done, they need to come to the city and request us to go ahead and use our resources and our street department to go ahead and do that. We are limited with regards to how much that we have available when keeping up with our projects, and so that's just something that we'd like to go ahead and work out. So, that's it in a nutshell with regards to how we see the funding. We know that 25%, my point is, that would be taken off the top and given back to the city regardless of whether or not there was a special road district in place. So we get that. So that's not coming out of their budget. That's the statutes that require the county set that aside. So that's all I've got, unless you have any questions.
Well, I didn't say it was coming out of our budget. You assumed that.
Well, we did at the meeting. When Kurt brought that up, he was indicating that was coming out of your budget when that's not the case.
No, I never did say that. But it's,
Well, I don't, that's okay. I mean,
you get the 25%, and that's not the only thing that I think that we bring to this community. We bring dollars and cents that's spent in and around Washington, you know. So,
and Ed, I don't doubt that. I just think that there's a more equitable way to go ahead and distribute that money.
That's not a good argument that you're going to get that money anyway, because, you know, but,
Ed, how do you maintain your roads with a part-time employee?
well, we overlay, we don't, if there's a hole or a patch or something, one guy can do that.
What about snow removal?
We've got five part-time guys that, most of them are truck drivers, and when it snows, they're not driving a truck anyway, and so they can be called. So we're very well equipped with that, you know, so. And the other, the thing is, their money, the city's money, they put in an account over there. And the reason for that is, it is illegal to spend that on anything but roads. It was collected for road tax, and it's illegal. And all they have to do is inform them that they want to spend it on whatever, and they get the money, you know. Whereas ours, it goes right into our account every month. But we don't do anything but roads. So that's the big difference, you know.
Okay.
Anybody else got a question?
Any comments, questions? Hearing none, we'll move on. Prepared? Okay, thank you. Where are we at here? Airport.
This, excuse me. The city is required by the FAA and MoDOT to request qualifications from consultants to do our overall planning, environmental, and project consulting. That was due this year. So we did post that in accordance with FAA rules and regulations, and we did receive 3 different statements of qualifications. And we are currently reviewing what those are. Now, keep in mind, these are for our capital projects, such as, the runway striping, any kind of pavement repairs, any kind of future hangar construction, those type of things that we may be experiencing over the next 5 years. So those, we did receive 3 statements of qualifications. We are reviewing those. I hope to have in front of City Council a recommendation on who to move forth with. This does not involve any dollars at this time because you don't set the consultant dollar amount until the project is identified. So this is just to say, basically it's like a retainer. You put these consultants essentially on, is retained essentially on your staff with no dollars, and any future project that you move forth, you go with them. Currently, our current consultant is CMT, Crawford Murphy Tilley. So we will be looking, they did submit a statement of qualifications along with 2 others, so we're going to be reviewing all those. We also have, council did approve a purchase last week regarding a loader and a snow blade, or essentially a plow, to utilize the tractor that's over there and the equipment and manpower that we already have. One of the concepts were that the street department actually, once they have the majority of the streets done in town, they send 2 trucks, a large truck and a small truck, over to the airport to clean the runway and around the hangars and whatnot. That's how we've operated always. So one idea was, well, we have staff over there that are full-time that should have some time to do some snow removal, when there's no planes coming in on a snowed-in runway. So we're trying to supply them with equipment to see if they can maintain at least the areas around the hangars with their own manpower to keep 1 truck in town to take care of our streets in town. So it's just a better way to use our manpower. So council did approve that purchase, and we're going to start trying that out here once a snow event happened. Now, that won't mean that we won't send anyone from the street department over, but it should at least alleviate maybe 1 truck and 1 person to kind of focus here in town. So just a way to share manpower a little bit better within our departments. We are looking at the potential for hangar construction in the next couple to a few years. So that's one thing on our agenda. We will be talking about that with our airport board, which will be here in December. We're going to try to get those meetings back up and running again, just to kind of keep everyone in the loop on what's going on. So, once again, if you have any questions or concerns with the operations of the airport, please forward those on to me so I can get those resolved as fast as possible.
Any changes in the occupancy over there, pretty much?
No, we're fully
Full up?
occupied, and it's been that way ever since I've been here. And I know Ray stated in the past that occupancy has been 100% for quite some time.
Yeah.
So we are actively trying to get that conversation going on a hangar construction and building that fund up. We do get $150,000 each year that we can use towards a capital project from the FAA and MoDOT. So there's a fund balance. You can only have $450,000 with the potential of $600,000 if you play the funding budget right. That will get you approximately 80% of a hangar built. So, we have to come up with that extra money to do so. So it's $150 each year. So the key is, what's that?
Entitlement money.
Yeah, it's called entitlement money, but it's $150,000 entitlement money. But you have to build that up in account. And right now, I think we have $163,000. So we're a couple years out yet, but there's some ways that you can essentially borrow ahead and then pay a small interest through the entitlement money that we may look into to try to speed that up a little bit. Just a couple things we're
Most of them
doing.
will be 80/20.
Yeah, and those are 90/10 projects. So
Yeah.
the FAA, the federal government pays 90% of that, city pays 10%. And there's dollars that are budgeted from the capital improvement sales tax to do these things as well. So I'll have more as we meet with the airport board, kind of the strategy maybe moving forth in the next couple of years.
Do we get anything off the fuel tax, the selling of the fuel?
Yeah, we get whatever profit margin is
Basically
made.
covers maintenance and whatever? Is that-
Yeah, and that, whatever
Anything
the
off the
profit
fuel
margin.
tax?
What's that? Sorry, Ray.
His question is, do we get any of the fuel tax money? That is the
Oh.
entitlement money that comes back?
That's the entitlement money, that's how. it-
Sorry,
correct.
different question,
That's
yeah.
how it comes through, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
And then the city gets profit on the fuel as well.
yes.
correct. Sorry, I didn't
That's
understand
understood. I
the
just-
tax.
Okay, good. I think it'd be advantageous, just looking at it, to try to move that, the additional hangar idea forward. I know you're waiting on,
Yeah, we have preliminary, I did ask CMT to pull together some preliminary numbers on if it was a 6-unit hangar, an 8-unit hangar, or a 10-unit hangar, to see just what the budget numbers would be. Again, this entitlement money will not fund the entire hangar, so we'll have to, think about how we want to do that. If we want to pull, essentially, the capital improvement sales tax money was spread out over the 8 years.
Yeah.
If we want to pull those monies together and then, get it constructed in 1 year.
it's just a
So
thought, that's.
There's ways that we can
Darren
do
knows
this.
how to do that.
Yeah.
You bet you do, you betcha.
Yep,
You get
but
the-
it's-
what you need, that's all I'm.
Yep. Steve just brought my attention. Yeah, the ALP is, from what I understand, at the FAA now doing their final review. So it is now through MoDOT and then back up to the FAA. So again, I would hope that we would have that done here sooner than later. But I'm not aware of any major changes to that.
Again, you got a federal aviation, transportation, one program ends September. Hopefully, a new one will be put in place, 6-year agreement. If there's anything that you think we could dovetail into that agreement and ask for federal monies, more federal monies, I don't know what it would be, but,
Yeah, we're 100% occupied with our hangars, and we could always utilize additional dollars to get things, to get more traffic out here. We are seeing an uptick in traffic just due to, we believe due to, we have a mechanic leased out there, and some of those planes are coming in from Spirit to come out to Washington. And we've heard just general comments that, if we had space, we could house them, so.
is the length of the rail, of the runway optimal, right where it's at, or could that be looked at?
It was in the ALP, and I know Ray was really, we were very much involved in, it goes upon touchdown traffic and those things, and we didn't quite meet the criteria to require a runway extension at this time, but it is in the ALP, I think, 500-foot extension.
And that's going to be a width and extension.
Yes.
And the issue there is for the traffic we're going to house here at Washington, the 5,000 feet's pretty good, but the traffic that the big businesses are going to bring in, so if we want to get a headquarters of a national company or something like that here, I think that's where we want to have the ability to take larger jets in and out. Right now, the ones that are coming in here are comfortable with it, and it's long enough, but if it was longer, it would be that much more comfortable and that much more attractive to the corporate jets.
Just
So-
thinking about, we were in
Yeah.
the process
Length would
of
be
looking
great.
at the actual places to store the airplanes. If you got a bigger airplane, is that what you're talking about?
Yes, so.
Taylor,
We don't have that.
Bigger airplane, what we would need
part of the
is a
discussion.
bigger hangar if we wanted to try and store those jets here. But the only time you would need to actually store them here is if you had like the corporate headquarters here.
I see.
But what you want
I
is
see.
for the branch operations we have out here, where they have a factory that's gonna employ several hundred people, they wanna be able to get in and out rather than go into Spirit. And right now, I think pretty much everybody is making it in and out, but the longer the runway, the safer it is to get in and out. So if something happens after you've thrown the throttle open on the end of that runway and you're getting up to speed, you want to be able to have time to slow it down and stop it before you run off at the end of the runway.
I'm just saying, when we get 90%, when the government kicks in 90%, we have to pick in 10.
Oh, yeah, and those dollars are entitled to us, so as long as we use them, they're ours. We're not competing for
It's just
those.
that right now, in the airport layout plan, we didn't have a user that said they wanted to come in here, and we didn't have the traffic that was up. That's the reason we slowed down and said, well, let's complete the airport layout plan. Let's slow it down a little bit. It doesn't give us any benefits or any more money right now to have that ALP done, the airport layout plan done. But we do want to get it finished because it's on a grant that they're working off of.
And it's important that it is identified to do that extension and with improvement on the ALP. So if there was a company that would come in, we could move quicker if it wasn't identified. So there's benefit there that it's been identified. Another thing to add too is I met with CMT in regards to, like I said, the 10-year planning, I don't know, maybe a month ago, and we were discussing, those pavement design lives on those runways are about 20 years. And that runway was about 2004, I believe? Five. So, we got to be, in the 10-year planning, we got to be looking out ahead because 2025 is a 20-year design life. So
I would disagree with that a little bit. It's going to depend on traffic. So if you have a piece of pavement that lays there and never has anything on it, it's not going to wear out.
I understand, but I just, we were doing some pavement repairs, obviously, with the last contract, and so that was a shutdown of the actual airstrip for a week or two this time. So, as pavement progresses, we may have to do some more improvements in the future, so we're looking at those things as well. Is just my point with that. It's not brand new, it's essentially midlife, so we just got to be looking out ahead over the next 10 years on what the priorities are to use those.
We're starting to see this, the takeoff and delivery, like helicopters, but they're small jets that are going to be, potentially get into the taxi service, quite honestly, where you actually got a taxi. It's like a taxi. You schedule a time and you can be take off, go, come back, 300 miles radius, all electric. It's coming. I've seen the prototypes of them just basically off the internet. I've been following it. I think it's something that's coming. Uber.
Yeah, Uber, actually. There was an article that it was cheaper to take a helicopter taxi in New York City than it was to take an Uber vehicle taxi last week, briefly, which is interesting.
And it was just something to, that would be an opportunity to have a pad over here just for those vertical takeoff and landings, air taxis. Start talking about it. I'm just thinking it's going to happen.
We'll have more again once the board and we meet and identify those things.
Anything else? Hearing none, moving on. Team Track, anything?
No report.
East-West Parkway, anything new down there?
There is nothing additional in
Nothing,
East
no
West
more
Park.
extensions heading toward to the,
You know, we kind of, when we say High Street Extension South, that's not necessarily East West Parkway, but we kind of
West
lump that
Parkway
in.
now, yes.
But, no, the only thing new is I did see a press release that, the new, assisted living, maybe would be the way to say it, will be opening this spring, so there'll be additional traffic, but I don't see that as a major traffic generator, so. And there were some concerns with the Casey's in that entrance, and keep in mind, we do have there was a plat requirement with that Casey's, that entrance off of High Street, because it was so close to the intersection, within 3 years, after 3 years of plat approval, that the city has the availability to require a right-in, right-out at that location. That money was set aside, so Casey's, basically, we put a cost estimate together. They paid the city that dollar number, so it's essentially earmarked to put in that right-in, right-out. So we have the authority to do so if there is concern with that entrance. I have not been made, nobody's told me there's been concerns with traffic or anything. So until that becomes an issue, we won't necessarily make it an issue. It's not that 3 years comes up and we'll automatically make it right in, right out. It'll be, let me know if there's issues, and then we'll move forth a project to get a right in, right out there.
yeah, Casey's has got to be a good income generator for you.
I don't know what the numbers are, but it is awfully busy, so.
Don't they have an exit at?
To Don Avenue.
Don Avenue, which actually
Yes.
is just next,
It's
actually
the,
connected to it.
it's the east-west street just to the south.
So that one could be, if people were to have to go around Casey's and come out of that.
If
instead of
you were-
making a right in, right out.
Yeah, if you enter Casey's, going southbound on High Street, you could get in, which is obviously the most important part of a retail type situation. If you were to leave with a right-in, right-out, you'd have to travel south, or you would utilize that Don Avenue to try to spread the traffic. That was the concept. MoDOT puts together some really nice guidelines on entrances and how far they're supposed to be from major intersections that they follow. The city hasn't adopted those, and I've been somewhat preaching a little bit about that. We need to get maybe some access control verbiage in the code, which we do not have now, especially with streets like High Street, Rabbit Trail. Having residential driveways off those major streets cause issues in the future. So we kind of thought outside the box to get some controls with this one. So we have that. So again, the only reason why I bring it to your attention is if you guys, Commissioner lives over in that direction. If you guys see anything in that area that would warrant just us looking into it, just let me know.
I think there was a serious accident right there at, where Jasper turns in, the other.
I don't know that right now. So,
I don't know what the circumstances or whatever, I just know that the fire department was called, and I happened to be in the fire station when they.
You know, if I can on this, the whole title of the East-West Parkway, I'm guessing, is it the footprint of the High Street, or is it something
It's-
else from Pottery East, or what? I mean,
it's not,
It goes all the way from.
I thought that's where it was.
It goes all the way, when we were updating and we went through all this with the property owners out there, it goes from Highway 100 south, all the way down, crosses A, and then goes all the way over, crosses 47. I think it still comes up someplace around
Yeah,
in South Point, if that still has.
Point,
the
yeah,
thing.
but I'm trying to figure out,
That's the whole.
A.
beginning portion is Pottery, or is it High?
it's A.
No,
It's Highway
High,
It-
High Street.
okay. Say High.
That
Oh, it
is.
is?
Yes,
Sorry.
because we had to lead, the judge required that it had to lead to and from the city limits.
Oh.
And that was the thing, and so we added that, when we had that portion, that got added to there. And this is what happened as far as development goes, because we always said, this road's not needed until the property develops. And as property develops, we want a roadway in plan so that we can go ahead and get traffic, not just put everything on 100. I would like to remind everybody, though, that when these discussions first talked about an East-West Parkway roadway, there was no discussion about 4 lanes of Highway 100. And we've since gotten that done in 2005, but I mean, yeah, well, I mean, that's how it goes back to the 80s as far as that goes. But that roadway still that's the reason why that's kind of the start, is just because that's where we've had the demand for development.
Right, and it might be time, and I would ask that we perhaps get together and discuss the opportunities for extending High Street and starting on this project from a, public-private, public-private partnership aspect of it. Because, the time is now. Strike while the iron's hot to get this thing put on board. We've had it on our agenda here for multiple years, and, with really not much action at all. I mean, it's.
Well,
being
the
mindful.
land wasn't sold until just a few years ago.
Right. Well, either or. But I mean, I think there are some equations we might be able to put together to help,
No question about it. Needs to be
push
looked
this
at.
thing forward.
We have discussed, I think, at least making the connection from 100 all the way down to Highway A.
Right.
And I think that what you have now within the last couple of years, I don't know if the Marquardt Farm, which is just below what Big Elm, Little Elm has purchased, if that is still actively being listed. I know it was at one point, and I don't think they could, but we felt that was probably, we had talked to the design firm, I think, that they were looking at possibly for the layout to say, keep the roadway in mind, keep this going all the way through. I think then you would have to go ahead and make the connection down there at A different set of Marquardts, own that property right there, and I think that was basically it. And I discussed that with the developer several times, if we will help coordinate the meeting if you want to go ahead and get all entities together, but don't request public assistance for just piecemeal. Let's lay it all out, and then it's a bigger project, and we can all see that there's an end game.
Makes
So,
sense.
Could you explain how that easement and stuff was put together? What year was that?
oh, the one that was through Jaspers, that was a long time ago. I mean, that was,
But I mean, the easement, actually the east-west
There is no-
portion of it.
oh,
There's a plan.
There's
there's a
plan.
plan, but property has not necessarily been
late?
purchased.
No, I know it hasn't
Yeah.
been purchased, but there was a defined easement, correct?
Right
Like
away.
2,000 feet of right-of-way,
It
I'm
was
sorry.
shown
right-of-way.
on plans.
It was shown on a plan as what was needed for the right-of-way for the roadway to go through, yes.
Right
That's,
away wasn't acquired.
It's not
Oh, it
was
quite.
never acquired.
But there was an agreement somehow that
The only agreement that the city had through that was when we worked with Jaspers, just south of the same spot of what we're talking about, just south of where Casey's and that area is. And there was I can't
Corridor, it
remember.
was a corridor.
Yeah, it was like a roaming easement and a.
400-foot
for a
wide corridor
Yeah.
from north to south.
That was the
Some
only
location.
thing that the city had kind of acquired over time, but then the rest of it, that's just as it was, as development occurred.
I kind of thought, though, that it was the county got involved in that somehow, and it was a defined, really, 1,000 or 2,000?
We have
Call
an
it.
agreement that there's notification requirements if there's a development that occurs along the corridor.
Okay.
But that's it. It's just notification.
It's possible that it
And they
was-
have to notify us anyway whenever there's a development within a mile and a half.
Yeah, they do, but I'm just saying, as I recall, there was a defined 2,000-foot, I mean, that's a long ways, that's a half a mile, I mean, in there, that this is where the plan was going to be. This is this land, whenever somebody touched that land, they were going to have to look at this document or whatever, and you might want to pull that document up.
Well, we've got it.
You got it?
We don't have to pull,
You got it. I'm just curious, that's all.
Yeah, it's there. It's just a matter of, and if, anytime that we get approached, that either land is for sale, and it's happened a couple of times.
Yeah.
We pull that out, and discuss, but I mean, then, that's up to the city then at that point, or the county, or whatever, or if we want to get others involved, but I mean, that's up to us then to go ahead and, try to secure the easement or the right-of-way at that time.
Could I ask that maybe Gina could put a copy of that thing in our next meeting for January, just so we can kind of be mindful.
You know, it's the document basically that, how many years ago was that?
That swath that was identified.
That swath.
Lead it-
Well, if you want to go back to the first comprehensive plan, it was 84. The more detailed plan that you're discussing, I think that you remember, gosh, that was like in the 90s.
98,
Yep.
99, 98, 99. So
But the county got involved, and I think,
not certain.
is it recorded?
Not certainly, county got involved because at that time, some of it was in the county.
Yeah, that's the-
Or something, because there was a portion of it, I somehow remember it's connected.
I think we ought to just look at.
90% of it's in
because
the
it could
county
be-
as far as that goes. I mean, it's, the actual where we've got the road identified, that's all out in the county. Part of the thing, like I said, when we wanted to go ahead and update our comprehensive plan, and we had the suit with property owners, but the judge said it has to lead to and from the city. And like I said earlier, that's the reason why that other portion of that was added, so that it left the city and then came back in, et cetera. And so that was part of our plan, and we had that.
Those perfect projects that apply for some federal funds as well.
Well,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think if we're hesitant as to know exactly if there is a plan or is there not and how it works, city, county, whatever, at least we should be able to, if we could present that to let people know that this exists, that this plan of a east-west parkway, it's like anything else. If you don't start talking about it, nobody knows about it. Do the developers know about it? And maybe they do. Maybe they can go to the county's.
Most of the ones, I think that, well, put it this way, most of the designers for subdivisions,
They know it?
they're very well aware.
They're aware of it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like everything, the more connectivity you have, the better off your region/community is gonna be. And in terms of accessibility from emergency services or conveniences to citizenry. So that's why I think maybe we can have a discussion, maybe Darren and I, or what have you, in terms of looking at some solutions/potential ignition of this, for future.
And
But
the
we'll be
other-
happy to dig it up and we'll put it in the packet.
Yeah, just something, just to identify what we did years ago, and I'd forgotten it.
We'll put it all together, give it to Steve, and he'll fix it all.
There you go.
There we go.
Take
Wait a
care of
minute.
it. Steve?
I see a head nodding, sure.
Anyway, the other thing is the school district property. Darren, are you getting involved in that?
We had some discussions, not from a transportation
Okay,
element,
I'm
but
just curious
from
if
a
there's
different.
anything that this committee should,
I don't think there's anything here. The only thing that I would say that did kind of come up on a transportation, I know it's being looked into by Tim, is the bridge down there at South Point on Old Highway 100. If we were to put infrastructure on there, i.e. Sewer extension or something along those, and we were going to tie that, which would be the cheapest route to go ahead and do, to tie it to the bridge. We can't tie it to the bridge that's there today. And so if that is, but if it's on the horizon to go ahead and be replaced, which I think it's to the point where it should be, because I think it qualifies now based on its score, then it would. But I think there's some research that they're doing to find out whose bridge is it exactly. All I can tell you is it's not ours.
Because right now on our GIS system, and my GIS guy Curtis says, look, that's special road district zone there. Now, whether it is or not, I don't know. We're getting legal to find out what it's recorded as or what MoDOT put it over as right now in the system. So when we get that finite answer, we'll have a better way with which we can attack this project as well, so.
But that's the only thing that would correlate between what the school district's
well,
doing out
as
there.
you find out, you'll bring it to the attention of the group, and we'll hash it, talk about it, whatever. Thank you, Darren. Public transportation? Anything? Our representative here. Any other business?
I guess I should have brought this up under the Franklin County Transportation, but I don't know whether it's rumor or not, but I heard that Ron Williams may be leaving, and I was going to see if you had an update on that.
It's been made very public, and, yeah, thank you for bringing it up, Ray. Now you're gonna press me for the name. It's Jim Frisch. We hired to replace Ron Williams. Ron will be retiring, I think his date is in March, if I'm not mistaken. And we've hired his replacement a week ago. The offer is accepted and tenured and accepted, and he will, Jim will be starting here, I think, next week. So, yeah, it's exciting stuff for the county, and congratulations to Ron. We're thankful for his efforts. He started, I think, Bernese, then the city, and then went to Illinois and came back to the county
It was in Crestwood or somewhere.
and retired with about 6 or 7 retirement plans, and he'll be
Quadruple dipping? Anyway, just the one item, I was just going to say a big thank you to the city of Washington and/or the police force and all the people that got involved with this funeral of this young man in town. I think everybody did it, and the firemen were really involved in it too. What a great way to show off our town. Not to show off our town, it's a sad thing, but it was pulled off with precision.
A lot of meetings. There were a lot of meetings with that.
Yeah, I just want to say there was a lot of hours spent, and I don't want to take any credit for it, but our emergency management department, John, police, they worked quite a bit on this to try to go ahead and make sure that this came through without any problems. When you're talking about that many cars that you're doing within that short a window of time, it takes some planning, and they stepped up, and I just felt like a bystander. It's like, what can I do to help you? I mean, but they figured it out, and that's the reason why it went as seamless as it did.
It was amazing,
So,
all the meetings.
And Mark Scarnia, when I thanked him for his efforts, he said, well, it's like when you've got Charlie Daniels Band on Sunday night and it's the end of the program and everybody wants to leave at the same time, 22 from the fair. So they have some experience in handling big crowds and getting them out of the town or getting them.
Don't really have bid.
Leonard Skinner. I'm dating myself. Anyway, any other business? If not, I'll entertain a motion, and there will be no meeting in December. There hasn't been. Happy holidays to everyone, and we'll see you back in two.
So happy
January
Thanksgiving, Merry
27th.
Christmas, and Happy New Year.
That's it all. And now we need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And a second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all for these. Thank you guys for this year. I think we got a lot done this year.
Wonder who made that motion?
Yeah, he was 3 times late.
Didn't see me on Saturday?